Hello everybody and welcome to the stream. My name is Guy and we are playing Star Trek Captain's Log, the solo adventures from Modiphius. And it's good to have you all here so we can carry on with our adventure. No internet issues, please. Last week ended off on a bit of a cliffhanger with the discovery that the nebula seemed to have some kind of energy. Now, just for those of you that have joined us and haven't watched us before, haven't watched me before, there's no us here. It is just you crazy folks in chat and myself. We are aboard the U.S.S Plato, and its current mission is to determine the source of origin of some gravimetric waves that are threatening a nearby solar system because they are becoming stronger and more powerful, and there is significant risk to a colony that is there. Now, we have started entering into the system, and these gravimetric waves are much stronger than we thought they were, and they're erratic. They're not consistent, which is problematic. Most natural phenomena that generate gravimetric waves do so on a consistency that is just a natural frequency that they all happen to have. This one does not have that. So our intrepid crew and the ambassador have decided to take refuge in an asteroid field. In that asteroid field, of course, there was some life forms that started coming towards them, but with some quick thinking from behalf of our amazing crew, we managed to avoid that. But as we were starting to make our way through the asteroid field, having avoided the spaceborne life forms that were coming towards us, we detected that the nebula, which appears to be a clear path towards the planet, is not as neutral as at first we thought. So there you go. That's where we're at. I've got my list of crew. I've got all of my bits and pieces, and I realize my books are all arrayed in the wrong place. But before, if you will indulge me a little bit, I wanted to show off this. Now, I haven't managed to send the post out to the backers yet, but you're my favorites because you're all here. The hardcover for Epic Locations has arrived, and I have to say, it is always one of those rare and wonderful experiences when you get to open a book that you have had a hand in making. And I have to say, I think this has got to be one of the prettiest books that we have generated so far as a group. Just absolutely gorgeous and useful, hopefully, to all of those of you who participate. You can get the PDF from our website. That's greatgamemaster.com. But if you ordered your Kickstarter version, it is on its way to the depots. If I got my copy, it means it is now being distributed across the planet, and hopefully you will get yours very, very soon in the next couple of days. The book, like I said, it's always such a pleasure to get the actual physical stuff. It just has such a, I don't know, there's just such a nice feeling to it. Okay, so the way that the game works is that I will be prompting stuff. I've got all my different books here. I will be prompting stuff from you. Occasionally I'll be asking for some random numbers. If I ask for random numbers, just type in a string of 4 or 5 or 6 random numbers between 1 and 20 so that I can just randomly look across the screen, grab some numbers, and then we can use them. Because this whole game, the way that the solo game works is it works off of random stuff. So I've got some random bits and bobs left here. Not bits and bobs, I've got some random values here or abouts that we can use as we need to. Let's see. Those are name generators. We don't need those. We've got some. Yeah, we might need some of that stuff. So let's keep some of that stuff going. Right. One last thing before we get any further is I'm going to be away. And so this is the last stream of the Tuesday streams for a month. I know it sounds insane. Next week is the last week before I go on a very little holiday to some very special, amazing friends that I made at D&D in a castle. They're getting married in San Francisco, and bless them, they have, and the rest of the role-playing group, we're all actually going to the wedding. They've sponsored us to go and join them in San Francisco for an amazing wedding. So if you live in San Francisco, give me a shout. Give me a shout. We'll be there. And would love some advice on what we should be doing in San Francisco whilst we are there. And then thereafter, I get back from San Francisco, and the next week I go straight through to D&D Inner Castle itself. That's in the first week of November. And remember, there are still a few spots for D&D Inner Castle in April next year, 2024. If you want to join me there or any of the other amazing DMs, you can do that as well. And I'm there until basically the 11th or so of November. So the next time we will be back is the 14th of November. The 14th of November. That's when I will be back with Tuesday shows. But watch all our social media. We will let you know when we're back one way or another. And then we can carry on. So we better make the most of tonight. And, well, I plan on doing just that. I'm just moving my screens around a little bit so that I don't have to look so much in all the different various directions and stuff. So there you are. Okay. Our ship has detected that the nebula has bioelectric signatures. Now, by this stage, I feel there's been so many reports of Starfleet vessels entering bioelectric exhibiting nebula that there would be a protocol on what to do. And I feel that the protocol would be on avoiding entering the nebula for fear of wounding spaceborne creatures that may or may not be present in this nebula. As a result, our captain, Vera Aldrin, says, full stop, helm, we cannot possibly enter that nebula. We're going to have to go out into the open space and brave the gravimetric waves. That means that perhaps the dispersion field of charged protons or whatever the solution is will have to save us from those gravimetric waves. We have no choice. I'm sorry. The first officer Diva Nanrock, agrees. But of course, there's no choice in the matter, Captain. Mr. Winkler, head of science, your plan on dispersing gravimetric waves. This was to emit a particle from the deflector dish, is that correct? Mr. Winkler nods, his red hair bobbing backwards and forwards. Jasper, the security head, I can make my way down to the deflector dish and make the necessary corrections if that is what is needed. It is that point that I feel that the ambassador, who relies on logic in terms of controlling his emotions and also in seeking to find himself, and that the mission comes first, steps forward. It is not beyond my skill to adjust a deflector dish to the appropriate settings. I believe the crew would best be served remaining on the bridge whilst I conduct the necessary changes to the deflector dish. Captain, with your permission, I would begin immediately. The captain is hardly likely to disagree with the ambassador, and with a nod from Mr. Winkler, well, it seems as if she has to acquiesce. With all speed and alacrity, the ambassador, the aged Romulan ambassador, makes his way down various decks until eventually he arrives at deflector control. Here, he is reminded of his past and also of his future, as he is quite certain that they will succeed. This is Starfleet protocol being followed after all, and this is something that he does focus on. And so, leading by example, I think, he attempts to make his engineering role. So to change the deflector dish is, I think, either engineering or science. I'm not entirely above saying that it's going to be an engineering feat. The science is being done upstairs by Mr. Winkler. And I would also say that this is going to take a certain amount of control. So that gives us a total of 10. Now, basically the way that the system works is we roll 2d20, and we have to roll underneath the actual value that we have. If we can get 2 values underneath, we get a momentum, which is a bonus. If we get 1 under, we succeed. If we get 2 over, it's just a failure. But if we roll any 20s, well, we're out. And I feel, with that in mind, and looking at the number arrays that have been presented to me, I feel like I need to roll a d20 every time we do this, just on the off chance that we get a natural 20. So that's all that we need to do. So I have a d20 here. I've got one of these Cosmic Connection d20s. They are handmade. You can find Cosmic Connection, I think, on Etsy. Anyway, so this is our control plus engineering check. We needed a 10 or less. If I look at the chat, bah! The first number I saw was an 11. Okay, the first number I saw was an 11, so that would be a failure. Here comes my random dice. And that is the number 9. I kid you not. I just couldn't see if it was a 9 or if it was a 6. It's a number 9. So 9 is 1 below the 10 that we needed. That is perfect. That means we have 1 success. That means, and I'm going to add this to our list of successes. Okay, we have 1 success. And as a matter of fact, with that success, the deflector dish comes to life. And this impressive blue stream of positive particles is spread out in front of us. And due to the inversion properties of the particles reacting with the gravimetric waves, there is a subsidence to the shuddering that the ship experiences as these gravimetric waves wash over the ship. Leaving behind the spectacular nebula that may or may not be living, the U.S.S. Plato makes its way with all speed towards the 4th planet where these gravimetric waves appear to be coming from. Was it the 4th planet or was it the 7th planet? My notes don't say. But I feel like it's Gordel Eri 4 where we have to extradite the prisoner from in the future. So this must be the 7th planet. And if you can remember from last week, well, you go for it as well. Okay, so I would appreciate that. Just so that you know, the moment that you get momentum or the moment that you get threat, you have to spend it. So we had threat last week. So this week, we're doing okay for now. And with that, that's actually our 5th success. It's actually our 6th roll. And the mission tracker, we said we were only going to be doing 5. Or I think we said we were going to be doing 3 originally. But you know what? I'm having fun. And hopefully you're having fun as well. So with 5, that's going to tick our first tracker box. And that says that we must now move on. We must now move forward. And actually, we did say we were going to do 3 success or failures before we move to the next chapter, because otherwise we're going to take forever. We're going to do 3 of these. My apologies. Yes, we're going to do 3 of those and 3 success or failures in each of those boxes. Right, so overall, we had 1 failure and 4 successes. And I think that worked out pretty well, because now the U.S.S. Plato begins its orbit of the planet. And I think you will agree with me that Starfleet protocol would dictate that we immediately begin scans of the planet. And those scans of the planet will be done by the ship. The ship has to do them. And if you remember, our ship has got a dual environment. There's the aquatic side of things, which we said maybe were aquatic Xindi from Enterprise days, as well as it's got obviously a lot of electronic warfare stuff. It's got regenerative Borg nanites. So the damage that we took last week has now been repaired. There's a turbolift that plays music from the 20th century, and it has improved power systems for quick redistribution, which is great. This means the ship is now going to begin its sensor sweep of the planet to determine if it can or cannot detect the source of these gravimetric waves. That puts it firmly in Mr. Winkler's hands, although the ambassador, now returning from the deflector dish, is ever present. It is not logical to assume that the science officer doesn't know what he's doing, but at the same time, it is also not logical for an experienced individual who has some understanding of weaponry, to check over the science officer's shoulder to make sure that the science officer doesn't miss something that perhaps the science officer is not trained to look for. That would be the ambassador's reasoning behind everything. And besides, the mission comes first. This is not about egos, as one might say. And so we are going to do our scan for the planet's surface. And I'm just double checking that we are all good here. Yes, we are. Okay. And so the scan for the planet's surface will obviously use sensors 11, which is pretty good. And because it's gravimetric, I was going to say that that's also science. So our grand total is 13. So if I look at the arrays that I've seen in front of me, boom, 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 the first number I see is an 18 from Eric von Roxalot. Nice to have you here, Eric. An 18, that's a great array. Thank you for that. And then our random dice that I have to roll here. And I think what we can do is when I come back in a month's time, we'll put the random generator somewhere. I'll find a place to put it, and then you guys can see it on screen as well. So here we go. And it's a 14. And we got was it a 14 from Eric as well? So I don't think that's great. I think that's 2 failures. So that is a failure. That's our first failure. Great. Great job, folks. That's excellent. Okay, so we have 1 success, defeating the gravimetric waves, and 1 failure. This is to discover the unusual power source, the origin of the waves. Right. I'm sorry, Captain, says Mr. Winkler, but I'm afraid I can't localize the source of the gravimetric waves. There's simply too much gamma radiation present in the surface of the planet. Our scans are unable to penetrate any deeper, and I suspect the gravimetric waves are coming from within the planet itself. All right, everyone, I want you in my ready room in 5 minutes, says the captain. Ambassador, I'd be much obliged if you would join us. 5 minutes later, everyone is sitting in the cramped but fairly well-appointed briefing room. The captain is pacing at the front of the large desk, and seated around it are all of the principal officers of the Plato. We did not come all of this way simply to not be able to determine where these gravimetric waves are coming from. There's got to be a reason for this. I want options. How do we find out where these things are coming from? Well, the medical officer, Bacchus, looks around. He doesn't have any ideas. Winkler, we know that there's gamma radiation on the surface. Gamma radiation is usually caused by some kind of weapons discharge, an explosion of some kind. It might mean that the surface has been irradiated, and that's what's blocking our scans. I would suggest that we send down a probe. Perhaps that might be the best way of determining the source of the gravimetric radiation. The engineer shakes his shaggy head. All of that radiation will do nothing but fry the circuits of any probe that we send down. At best, you might get a few minutes' worth of data, but I doubt it'll be very useful. The only option that I can see is to send down crew. A manned space shuttle will have a greater chance of scanning the surface. They don't need to disembark, merely to get close enough excuse me, for our scans to work. Well, now, just hang on a moment here. That's when the chief medical officer pipes up. I've been looking at the scans that Mr. Winkler did do, and I have to say that the level of radiation is fairly significant, Captain. I'd have to inoculate anybody going in the shuttle, There's just no way of knowing exactly how close they're going to need to get, and the closer they get to that radiation, the closer and more damage they're likely to do to themselves. I also wouldn't recommend that they spend any more than, I would say, 60 minutes down there. Absolute tops. The captain casts a wary glance at the first officer. She does not like to sacrifice crew unnecessarily, but at the same time, if the probe is not going to work, why send the probe in the first place? True to her station, after a suitable pause, her eyes lock with the ambassador, who sits cold and steely at the far end of the table, having contributed very little to this conversation. In deference to his rank and his position and his experience, she finally offers the floor to the ambassador. Steepling his fingers in his traditional pose, which he hopes might seem to be contemplative, but which often is interpreted as a very arrogant and aggressive maneuver, the ambassador looks across at everybody. Given the fact that this mission is detracting from our current operations of a far greater nature, in my opinion, and in Starfleet's, I would suggest that whichever course of action we take be the one that results in the speediest of solutions to this problem. I feel that a probe might be cautious, but may delay our departure from this system even longer than we already have taken. It is my opinion that if the Doctor is satisfied that the crew will be secure and safe, that might be the best approach. The captain could have anticipated the Romulans' cold approach to the situation, sacrifice a few people, and then get on with it. It is also one of the more logical ones. However, the choice is yours. What should we do? So the... Oh, no, not that. Sorry, I'm launching a poll. No, not the Q&A. Start a poll. There we go. Right, yes. We go down to the planet's surface with people. No, we send a probe. The poll is up. Yes, we send a manned shuttle down to the planet's surface. No, we send a probe. You vote. There are 27 of you watching the stream. I need at least 13 votes. Decide on the outcome, if you will, as you consider sending a shuttle or not. And as the wonderful Laura Bones, thank you for being in the chat, Laura. The wonderful Laura Bones has reminded you, my Kickstarter for Mage Hunter is currently out. Now, we breached the funding goal, so it's going to come out. I'm super excited for it. We're on the way to the first stretch goal. And even if you can't support, just by sharing it around on your social media and your Reddit pages and things, that would be amazing. And with that brief interlude, I need one more vote. Now there's 28 people watching, so I need 2 more votes. If you can vote, vote now. Yes, we send a shuttle, manned, down to the planet's surface. No, we send a probe. 2 more votes. That's all I need. I see that a few folks are saying, bring a red shirt. Absolutely. Send the ambassador along. Absolutely. There are votes. The poll is over, and it wasn't unanimous. It certainly wasn't unanimous. The debate rages for a while before eventually the captain raises her hand. We are wasting time here, and as the ambassador said, we do not wish to do that. As a result, I think the shuttle idea is the best. Doctor, I would be very appreciative if you were to inoculate those that would be going down. Considering we do not know the cause of this, I would suggest that it is Mr. Winkler who goes down, along with... Well, who has geological experience, as a matter of fact? Does anyone have geological experience? The first officer, Diva. I have dabbled in some, but I would not say I'm an expert, but I have dabbled. Very well, then you will lead the expedition. And what are the chances that this was a manned expedition or a manned cause. If there were weapons discharged here, perhaps we might encounter people, in which case someone who's got some kind of xenoanthropology would probably be best. The ambassador can do nothing but smile. The captain has eloquently and elegantly maneuvered it in such a way that he himself must now volunteer. And with a smile, he raises his hand. I am perfectly capable of leading any kind of negotiations with whomever we might find. As a result, I will volunteer to go on this mission. The medical officer raises his hand. I feel that I should... Oh, I apologize. The medical officer raises his hand. Well, I can't, in good faith, I can't send anybody down to the planet if I wouldn't go myself. So I might as well go along. That way I can monitor the radiation levels in the team and make sure that there's no harm that comes to anyone. The captain nods, and it is settled. We have to go down to the planet's surface. Getting to the planet's surface is not difficult at all. It is a shuttle. The shuttle is being piloted by, let's just say an ensign by the name of Oxley. And I'm just drawing names from chat here. Oxley has drawn the short straw to pilot the shuttle. All right, I'm just going to make a note here. Oxley, shuttle pilot. And the rest of us are in tow. The shuttle bumps and rocks as it breaks through the atmosphere of the planet. If I recall, the planet did not have a very nice atmosphere at all, I believe. If I go back to my really old notes here, it was a gravitational waves. It was a Class M planet, but it was abandoned for a reason, and now we know the gamma radiation has just been too much. So the shuttle bounces around as eventually it makes its way into the atmosphere. And as soon as it breaches the atmosphere, a brilliant sight is presented to everybody. Great valleys filled with a luminous green mist appear almost as islands, the hills that surround these valleys peeking out and existing in this swirling lime green cloud. The shuttle gets to 100 meters above this green swirling gas, and immediately Mr. Winkler begins his scans. The ambassador provides assistance, considering he's here, and the shuttle systems are not ideal. Mr. Winkler's scans reveal that there is a large structure, maybe 10 meters below the level of the actual clouds. This structure appears to be the source, or at least on top of the source, of the gravimetric radiation. Yes. The first officer looks at everybody. I cannot order anybody to go inside this structure. Now, Doctor, I suppose that none of the scans reveal as to... it's not the captain! Oh my goodness, it's the first officer! I cannot order any of you to go into this structure. The radiation, I'm assuming, will proliferate throughout. Or is there a way to determine whether the interior of the structure is without radiation? Some kind of radiation shielding, perhaps, Mr. Winkler? Mr. Winkler is going to have to make a roll here. There is no doubt about that. He is going to use the shuttle's sensors. I just want to see if there's an actual shuttle listed in the book. So I'm just going to turn to the book's ship schematics, because I feel like it would have the value of those ships here. So let's just see. Well, we've got a runabout. This is not a runabout. A Norway class would not carry a runabout on board. It would be some kind of shuttle pod. I don't think they're going to give us a shuttle pod because of the nature of the game. However, I do feel that we would be perfectly within our rights to say that this little shuttle probably has the same capabilities as the Warp Delta class. Now, I've not really been too familiar with this ship. It must be in one of the series somewhere. The Warp Delta was a heavily armed and nimble vessel capable of holding off all but the most insistent of pirates. After the founding of the Federation, Warp Delta vessels were slowly relegated to patrols of the Sol system and human colonies until being retired from Starfleet in 2190. I would say that the values of this little ship are probably similar to the values of a shuttle pod. That's something that the Norway would send through. We can debate it later on if you like, but those are the values that I'm going to say. And for Mr. Winkler to determine if there's radiation within the structure itself, that is going to be definitely a sensor roll, and it has sensors of 6, this little Warp Delta. And it would be, I would say it's going to be an engineering check, because he's going to use the sensors to see if he can penetrate the structure and determine if there is radiation in there. And so that gives him a grand total of 9. And so the first number I look at, boom, that would be from Hunter, and that is a 1. So that's a 1. That is great. Second roll is the roll I'm going to make here. And that's a 16. This would be a great D&D dice. It rolls really high. So on a 1 and a 16, that is where we end up. And unfortunately, that means that we have a success. Fortunately, I should say, unfortunately. Fortunately, that means that we have a success. I'm just going to put a bookmark in there. And I feel like colored Post-its would be really good if you have this book. And with that, Mr. Winkler succeeds. So that is another success. So that gives us 3 checks already. And so 3 checks already means that we actually have to be on our way. We have to be on our way in terms of our next chapter point, I believe. So that puts us there. Another series, and that'll put us on that next point. And so I've got good news, Captain. Well, First Officer. It appears that there's no radiation within the structure itself. There's a slight problem, of course. There's radiation all around the structure. And the shuttle pod, I don't know how long it would be able to be submerged in the actual radiation itself before we were to start to succumb to the effects. The first officer looks over at the chief medical officer. Doctor, what would be the effects of being exposed to the gamma radiation for a few moments as we exit the shuttle and enter the structure? As long as it was kept to an absolute minimum, the dosage I have given us should protect us from the majority of the effects, but I would say we need exposure of no more than a minute. Anything longer than that, and we're going to be in trouble. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, all right? So, under a minute, please. The first officer, not as confident as the captain, looks to the ambassador. The ambassador nods. The mission must come first. With that, Mr. Oxley is ordered to lower the shuttle down into the radiation. As soon as he does that, the communications link with the ship, which communications were meant to be kept open, is immediately severed. The radiation from the gamma radiation is simply too much for communications to penetrate. That, and also the gravimetric radiation down here seems to be a little bit stronger, a little bit tougher of sorts. Once inside, however, it becomes apparent that there is a docking port. Whoever built this structure apparently intended to leave from a high point, and as a result, the shuttle makes its way over to that docking port. Now, of course, as the shuttle gets to the docking port, the crew have all been, well, they never intended on getting out of the shuttle pod. So the question is, who's going out first? The first officer assumes that responsibility. She will go and attempt to open the airlock door, which will allow everyone to move across as fast as humanly possible. That's the best thing that can possibly happen. So she is going to do that, and in order for her to do that, she is going to have to, unfortunately, the way the game works is it says you use the ship's values when you are doing rolls for crew, And so she is going to use, I would say, in order to open this stuff, she is going to use computers, her brain. She's going to try and figure this out. And she needs to use security. The physical nature of opening up this airlock, I think, is the best bet. So that puts us on 11. The first number that I see is from Nick, and that is the number 7. So we have a success. This is the second one. The EV suits, no one brought spacesuits because they weren't meant to leave the shuttle, if you remember. They were meant to simply fly over the radiation and scan for the source. So we've got a 7, I think I said it was, from Nick. We have a 7, and here we go. I rolled a 3. So that is 2 successes underneath what we needed, and I believe that means that we get momentum. I stand to be corrected, but I believe that means we get momentum. And so as a result of momentum, I see the next number on my list is from Luke, and that is the number 4, and that is advanced warning. I look again, and that would be, I need some more number arrays, folks, because I'm just seeing a few here in chat. Ace Coffee's given us a new one. The first one they gave us was an 8. And so, right, we get a warning here of, oh, hang on a moment. Sorry, I didn't read this correctly. So advanced warning. Oh, that is the first one. That is, I did read it correctly, actually. So as the first officer stumbles across and opens the hatch using her physical skills and pulling it open, which is absolutely fantastic, there is an automated warning klaxon which starts sounding. And the klaxon, to make an annoying noise, is an ah, 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 ah sound. And that klaxon is warning of gamma radiation. That triggered my Alexa to start going. Okay, don't do those sounds at home, folks. And so as a result, the warning starts to sound out, and a fine spray of some kind of chemical coats the first officer and sprays around the entrance, causing the entrance to simply become less radiated. Without skipping a beat, the first officer steps in and waves across the ambassador, the medical officer, and the science officer, who all move across. And that is what we get to. The door seals shut behind them, and immediately that sound immediately stops once the door is shut. Lights in the facility are flickering. There is some power here, but it is not complete. The walls, coated in a strange lime green color, emit light from light panels inset into the walls. The walls themselves are hexagonal. They have 6 sides to them, although it appears as if whoever built this structure was designed to walk on the ground under normal circumstances. I will take point. Ambassador, if you would bring up the rear, please. Mr. Winkler, I want as much information on this structure as possible. We did not know that it even existed before this morning. Please record everything. And I would be much obliged, Doctor, if you would ensure that there is no residual radiation seeping into the structure or new radiation as we continue deeper into this beast. Everybody nods in quiet agreement that this is probably the best use of all of their time. And so our intrepid team make their way deeper and deeper into the structure. On the U.S.S Plato, now in geosynchronous orbit, slowly rotating around the planet, there is much consternation. What do you mean the shuttle is simply gone? I don't understand. They were supposed to be on the surface. Did they crash? Was there some kind of a malfunction? Scan for them, get them back. It's at that point that Ensign Andrews, who's now had to take over from the missing science officer Winkler, looks up and says, I'm awfully sorry, Captain, but they were there one moment, and then the next, they simply vanished. The best thing I can possibly suggest is that they actually went into the radiation. Went into the radiation? That is... I thought if they went into the radiation, that was going to cause them significant problems. Didn't Bacchus say that they could only stand an hour outside the radiation? How long can they survive inside the radiation? The Vulcan, known as a rock, turns, standing in for the Doctor. If the crew did enter into the gamma radiation, it is logical to assume that the Chief Medical Officer authorized the procedure. Otherwise, it would be a fool's errand if the Chief Medical Officer did not authorize it. We must therefore conclude that the gamma radiation is somehow less than it was first indicated. Well, either that or they've all gone crazy because of radiation sickness. The captain immediately stops Erok from correcting her that there would be no insanity induced by gamma radiation, merely a corruption of the cells into horrific mutants. I know. All right. We've got no communications. What are our alternatives? Well, if I might, says Ensign Andrew, there is still optics. We can always, of course, assume that if the shuttle were in danger, we would see something. I can scan for explosions or new light flares, I suppose. I certainly don't think that... You run your scans, Mr. Andrew. I want to know when that shuttle emerges. Furthermore, I would say we're going to give them 30 minutes. If they haven't emerged in 30 minutes, we'll send down... As a matter of fact, Mr. Andrews, I want you to prepare several of those probes. Captain to the engineer. Yes, Captain. I want you to prepare probes. I know you said they wouldn't last very long, but we may have a shuttle that's gone down in that radiation. Prepare the probes. I will do, Captain. To prepare the probes will be engines, structure, I would say, and engineering. So structure and engineering gives us a 13. Not a bad roll or requirement, I would say, for our chief engineer to get through. So on a 13, well, I'm going to look at those numbers again, and I see the first number is a 15. 15 is the first number that I have seen. Thank you for providing those arrays, folks. I really do appreciate that. So that's a 15, so that would be a failure. And here we go. This is the next roll. A 10. We had a 13 as our difficulty, so we're golden. We're good. That's another success. We're kind of lucky, I guess. I see that Mr. Oxley has said when we land, I rolled a natural 20. Well, that's good to know. I mean, the shuttle did land. That's true. We didn't really roll for it, but I'm glad that Mr. Oxley took some pride in how he landed that shuttle. I think that's important. And Rock, you keep on quoting Starfleet regulations and rules and keep the medical science going. Right. Whilst Mr. Andrew and the chief engineer, Gat Natug, are busy working on making sure that the probes are successful, nothing else is happening up here. However, I feel like this is the point where we need to inject a subplot. Because that's Star Trek for you, isn't it? There's always a subplot. And our subplot, if I go back to my notes, something that we had to do was we had to extradite somebody. And we worked out that they were going to have special knowledge on this whole shipping thing. And I feel like that extradition, it's too easy if it's just this planet issue, right? I feel like we need to complicate matters up. Now, you could disagree with me. As a matter of fact, you're Q. You get to decide what happens, mon capitaine. So, yes, we complicate the Plato's life. No, we move away from the Plato and go back to the crew on the planet's surface. This is our story. So, yes, suddenly, whoosh, mon capitan, you have been naughty, and so you will be tried. Perhaps, or perhaps it'll just be quiet. Mr. Oxley, in my head canon, I've already died in a crash landing. Yo, no, you haven't crashed yet. That's the dramatic twist at the end of the episode. Perhaps it is, perhaps it isn't. I don't know. We'll see what's happening. We've got still 28 people watching. Thank you all for watching. Remember to hit that like button if you are liking what we were doing. It lets me know that I should carry on doing this because you're enjoying it. Okay, so 9 votes in. I need another 5 votes, please. I need 5 more votes. So if you are watching, then please cast your vote now. Yes, we complicate matters for the Plato. No, we do not contemplate it. We do not complicate it, I should say. We're contemplating it anyway. So welcome to the author, Major Trekkie here. Absolutely. Welcome. Oh, no, they killed Kenneth. No, we haven't killed Kenneth yet. And it's Mr. Oxley. Quick promote him. Yes, if he's no longer an ensign, and then that could work. But he can't just be a lieutenant either, because sometimes lieutenants get taken out too. Okay, those votes coming in thick and fast. We need just 2 more votes. 2 more votes will carry us across that line. And at the moment, it's 60%, 30%, which is pretty good. Yes, we complicate the Plato's life. No, we don't contemplate the Plato's life. Effectively, what that will do to the story is we'll just extend the length of the story a little bit as we bounce between the two. And if you are a fan of my YouTube channel, this is a tactic that I will use all the time with my players. As you add in the complication, that diverts them away a little bit and then brings them back again. Especially if the party gets split up. It's a wonderful thing to do. Okay, we've got our votes are in. 71% of you say it's time for whoosh, a flash. And so there it is. A plot, A plot, B plot, classic Trek, absolutely. And so we are going to roll for our little subplot here. It's an encounter, and we've got a couple encounter options for us. So I'm going to look at the numbers. The first number I see is from Mech, and that is the number 19. The 19. Oh, how nice. Now, remember, there are multiple other agents that are after this, whatever this is, that's generating the gravimetric distortions. It should have reminded us, as a matter of fact, but the Matrix has done it for us. The planet is part of a treaty stipulation that is under contestation from a rival empire, something along those lines. Okay, that is gold. That is absolute gold, because... Captain, the probe is ready to launch, but I'm detecting another vessel approaching on an intercept course. Another vessel out here? Are they locals? It appears not, Captain. I'm afraid to say, it looks as if their weapons are armed. And whilst I look for something, I'm not saying what I'm looking for. The weapons are armed. That's a cliffhanger, if ever I heard one. That takes us back down into the greasy hexagonal interior of the green ship, the green space structure, I should say. And our intrepid heroes are now exploring. So we need one more success to get another tick box in our overall storyline, which I think we're pretty good at. Let me just, I'm just trying to find something. Actually, you know what? In chat, throw in a bunch of species that could be trying to find what the hell his gravimetric weapon is. Let's do it in chat. So let's do that. So you tell me what is flying towards the Plato at the very moment in time, whilst the rest of our crew are continuing to move downstairs. So before the captain can even order an alert, we are back down in this superstructure, and the superstructure is incredibly old. We established that when we were rolling up the mission. It is incredibly old, and it is getting stronger and stronger and stronger, which is not helping the structure. A rumble rocks through the corridors as the first officer takes the lead, trying to figure out what is going on. Mr. Winkler, his tricorder out, scanning in all different directions, suddenly freezes. Sir, I think we might be in trouble. Do you care to elaborate on that, Mr. Winkler? Right, yes. So the gravimetric distortions are getting faster. It's as if something is building in intensity. If I might postulate an idea, I think that this device is generating the gravimetric distortions, given the fact that the superstructure looks as if it's designed to disperse energy in different directions. Only I don't think it's designed to build up to such a point that it tears itself apart. That doesn't seem to make sense. Also, the age of this alloy, this thing is over 10,000 years old. It's been here for a very long time. I don't think it would just catastrophically tear itself apart. It doesn't really make much sense. Do you know how far we are from some kind of control center or some such that might allow us to actually understand exactly what is going on? The ambassador steps forward. If I might postulate a solution to our situation, these corridors seem to extend in all directions, and our scanning equipment is limited. I am not in much of the habit of suggesting this, but I feel that it would be best if we were to split into teams in an attempt to find some kind of engineering center or a control center. Our comms seem to be working for the time being, so perhaps that is what we should do. You are right, Ambassador. I hate the idea of splitting the party, but what choice do we have? The structure is huge, and our sensors, as you say, are limited. We are starting a poll. Do we split the party, or do we stay together? If we split the party, both teams will have to roll independently, which potentially weakens them. On the other hand, if we keep the party together, they're going to take twice as long to find the center. And it's a farewell to Richard Nowling. Catch you later. Thanks for being part of the stream. See you in a month's time. Just remember that. So, splitting the party or not? I need 14 votes. It's 50-50 at the moment. Yes, we split the party. No, we don't. Your choice. Vote now. I need 4 more votes, and then we will close the poll. Closer than I thought it would be. Well, the comms seemed to be operating at the moment, but everyone's been very close together. Depends on how far away they get, I guess. That will be something to determine. And there's only one way to find out. Absolutely. I need 2 more votes, please. If you can vote, please vote. If you can't vote, if you're just listening in whilst perhaps heading somewhere or doing something, I completely understand. I will close the vote in a few seconds. So we will then make our decision based on that. All right, I'm closing the vote. We had 11 votes in, which is, I still think, fair. On 11 votes, we split the party. All right, I agree with you, Ambassador. I suggest that myself and Mr. Winkler should head to the west. You and Mr. Bacchus head to the east. As soon as either of us finds anything remotely resembling some kind of control center, we communicate with the others. If you've gone more than 500 meters, turn around. It is simply too big, and I do not wish to risk it. Noted. I wish you fair hunting, says the ambassador. With that, the team splits in half. The first officer and Mr. Winkler heading in one direction, the ambassador and the chief medical officer heading in another. We're going to get two roles going on, as the first officer and the scientist are going to try and find something. They are going to be using for this role, if you can see the ship systems there, for this role, I would say, as they have science on their side. First officer had geology of some kind, that they're going to be using sensors for what sensors that they can find. And we know that science is a good one, but I think this is going to be sensors and engineering, which puts them on a 14, which is really, really good. So on a 14, I am looking at the numbers available to me. Mech has given me a 5. We like 5s. Here's the die roll. And that's a 3. We get momentum. That is fantastic. We get momentum, which is really, really, really good. Momentum. On a momentum, I'm going to look, and I see from Nick, I see that we get a 9. Okay. I'm going to upgrade that to an 11 because I can. It just makes more sense. New technology. We find some new technology. And as we are looking at this new technology, I look across and see a 5. And it doesn't really give us a huge amount of extra information. It's a derelict item has been found with some tech still intact. So that is what the science team of the first officer and the science officer have found. They've found some intact tech. And I believe that that tech that they have found is going to be some kind of portable radiation shield. The device protects a small area from itinerant radiation, from radiation that might be traveling around or might be in the immediate vicinity. So they've got a radiation shield that they have found. I like that. Whereas the ambassador and the chief medical officer, it's xenoanthropology, it's logic. So I'm going to say that that would be, as they are wandering around, that's going to be comms. They're talking to each other. They're looking for the logical path. And they are going to use comms, and they are going to use, I would say, command. So that puts them on an 11 as they are wandering in their direction. So on an 11, okay, so that's a success. So with that success, by the way, that means we have to tick our box because that's 3 more successes. On that, it means we have to start drawing to a close this particular entry. We've only got 2 more sort of episodes left, if you like, or moments left, if you like. So this roll is the beginning of that. And so this roll is that value. As I said, it is comms and command, a roll of an 11. I look across at the numbers. The first number I see is from Mr. Oxley, and that is an 8. Okay, great stuff there. And so we have an 8. Remember to roll arrays. If you have a D20 at home, I believe some of you are already doing that. I think Erok said that they were doing that already. Roll an array of dice, and this will be great. And so I rolled a 2, nearly a 20, a 2. So that gives us 2 successes, which is another piece of momentum, which is great. And so that momentum I'm going to spend to say that working out logically the structure, the way in which everything is positioned, that our team has arrived at what looks to be like some kind of central controlling hub. It is an impressively large chamber. And at the very center of the chamber, there is what appears to be a 6-fold warp core. 6 separate channels running towards a central column which feeds high up into the structure and low down into the structure. The room itself has 3 levels that all look over this magnificent 6-fold core. There is, however, a large amount of electrical damage that is playing out across the various consoles covered in alien symbols. And furthermore, the core appears to be hyperactive. It is throbbing. The light energy inside of this core seems to be incredibly chaotic, incredibly unstable. And that takes us back up into space, where we have the captain, Aldrin, looking at the view screen. And on the view screen is an unusual ship. It has a crescent-shaped prow, and its aft is an even bigger crescent, as if two cyclic moons have been stacked one in front of the other. There is a deviation, however, as a third cyclic moon on a perpendicular axis appears to cut across the back. This looks to be like some kind of Ferengi warship, and it doesn't appear to want to talk. And we'll be back next week, folks. No, not next week. Oh my goodness, we'll be back in a month. How does this hour disappear so quickly? I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is. I can only thank you for your participation, for helping me create this really cool little adventure. I mean, I would love to watch an episode of this. Currently, I'm rewatching Enterprise, and I have to say, it's a little bit better the second time around than the first time around. I still have my issues with the casting and the characters, but we can't go back and change it. It is what it is. And I do still find it quite enjoyable. I hope that you have some Star Trek or something that you can go and watch, relax, and unwind to. Perhaps you're watching Ahsoka. Thoroughly recommend that too. Anyway, I will be gone for a month. I will be playing role-playing games all over the planet, and I hope that you get some role-playing games in too. Until next time, huge thank you to Laura Bones for being in chat, and to all of you for supplying those wonderful random numbers, to Mr. Oxley for being our shuttle pilot, to Mr. Andrew for being our stand-in science officer, and to, who else was there? Mr. Erok, our stand-in medical officer, whilst the primary crew are away. The U.S.S. Plato thanks you for your service and hopes that you can continue next week, or next month when we come back. And hopefully I remember everything that happened in this episode. I will take copious notes after I have signed off. And that is me. I am signing off until we see you again in a month's time. Until then, goodbye.